on this episode of Raising the Wild Ones podcast.
Now, so then you get into catch and release. Jesus didn't release those fish.
Jesus did not catch and release those fish.
No, I'm just kidding. But
Jesus catching. Oh, but see, then the game and fish department's gonna get really mad at you, and then they're gonna come over and look at your cooler, and then like, why do you have this undersized crappie, Dustin? I'm like, Jesus said. You know what I mean? Trichomoniasis or trichomoniasis, something like that. So with biblical hunting, like we're kind of that's our topic really today, is talking about like hunting biblically, and like, right, we're supposed to let Christ overflow into every aspect of our life, right, as Christians, and so that even includes hunting. So is trophy hunt, this is a good one, I just thought of this on the cuff right here. Is trophy hunting, does that kind of like fall into it? You know, can you hunt the big deer?
Raising the Wild Ones podcast.
I guess we should have come up with some sort of a dad joke.
I guess we could have. I mean, you know, this is the best part about podcasting, though, is it's Googling dad jokes. I'm Googling one right now. 145 dad jokes that are actually funny. And the first one is, what do you call a factory that makes okay products?
Oh, I don't know.
A satisfactory.
Oh, that's a good one. Here, I've got one for you.
Okay.
What did George Washington say to his troops before crossing the Delaware?
What?
Get in the boat.
You know, okay, one of these days, Caleb, you know what we need to do? We need to just go back and forth with dad jokes for like 30 minutes and see if we can make the other person laugh.
Yeah. I got one more. What's the difference between roast beef and pea soup?
What?
Anyone can roast beef.
Anyone can roast beef.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. Anyways, I'm done with that.
Hey, how do you follow Will Smith in the snow? You follow his Fresh Prince. Get it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that's a good one.
That's a slow burn dad joke.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Slow burn dad joke. So, okay. Well, this week it's deer season, Caleb. Have you shot a deer yet?
I have not. We wanted to do this like for the opening day of deer season, but we're both busy guys and have a lot going on, and time totally slips away. But
it's probably
it's a couple weeks into November. I've been hunting quite a bit, and it's been kind of slow so far.
I won't lie. It's been really hot here. I mean, me and Caleb are both in the same place. And so I went twice. You texted me the other day and you asked if I went twice. And one of the times was actually at the church. And I saw absolutely nothing. The one we were going to buy, the house we're buying, the church we're buying.
I was about to say, how would you, so I was thinking, my first thought went to our church, and our church is surrounded by a high fence. And I was like, how
well, okay,
we may need to have a discussion about that.
That's what we like to call illegal poaching.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Maybe maybe we need to
the church.
So did you see anything at your place?
No. Okay, so I've seen a few deer over there, but I didn't see anything at all. And what's really, really funny is, you know, when you're sitting there hunting, and for those of you who've like hunted in Texas, I know different states have different laws and stuff, but we can use deer feeders here in Texas, right? And so a deer feeder makes that telltale sound. You know what I mean? When it goes off, right? So I'm sitting there and it's really quiet, and I hear fairly close to me, and I'm like, dang, there's a guy just on the other side of the fence who's got a feeder set up. And sure enough, I walked the fence the other day, and it's a little ways over there. And I'm like, I'm going to have to fight that guy and his deer feeder to get deer at my place.
You know, one where I hunt, I kind of got two places now, but where I basically hunted my whole life, I can sit there, and depending on some seasons, it's not, depending on your neighbors and stuff, but I can literally hear 1, 2, 3, at least 4, not counting mine, maybe 5. Yeah. So there's years where I can hear 4 or 5 feeders going off. And, you know, it's one of those things where a lot of people, I think from out of state, kind of think, oh, they're putting corn out, it's cheating, all this stuff. But what happens is this time, you know, basically deer season hits, and the deer pretty much, for the most part, kind of stopped going to the deer feeders. it
Well,
gets hard to bring them in. It doesn't
and
make it easier.
this is going to be the episode that we're going to get a lot of flack on. I know it because there's going to be some guy up in Wyoming who hikes 30 miles every day to go deer hunt. And like we're sitting here talking about deer feeders. But I will also say this, it gets really interesting when there's big droughts because I will say this year's good year. We've had a lot of rain in the summer and the spring.
Hmm.
And so it's green and there's so the deer aren't coming to the feeders, but man, there are some times where you get heavy droughts that it's just hit or miss whether the deer are even there because they're going looking
Yeah,
for
and
food, you know?
and a lot of years like acorns, if the acorn crop is really good and you've got
Oh,
oak
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trees, they're not going to eat corn until that's gone. Now, so I have one question I do have. How do you say acorns?
Acorn,
Acorn?
like
Uh,
acorn, I guess. Is that like a
where
southern
you
thing, like acorn, right?
yeah,
Okay.
acorn. Yeah.
How do you say pecan? That's another one. How do you say pecan?
Oh, I really like to say pecan.
Do you do it on purpose though?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because like, okay,
Drives my kids crazy.
this is a good off-color joke. My mother-in-law, which I don't know if she listens. If you listen, Kara, this is to you. She says pecan because she says a pecan is something you pee into, like a pecan. And I'm like,
Never done that, I
what?
don't think.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So
I
I
mean,
just got to
yeah.
throw that one out there.
No, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. So some years, with feeders, it helps sometimes, like especially like maybe late season, they'll come to it. But a lot of times, especially if you've got like where I'm at, where you've got 4 or 5 feeders within 500 yards either way, it makes it tough. And like you said, they could go from yours to theirs to, I mean,
Oh, just
it
here to there to here there to here.
it,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it easy. Can sometimes makes it tougher.
Well, it's interesting because I know so I know growing up for me, my great granddad, I think I've talked about it a little bit, and so he was part Native American, and so I don't want to say he was anti-feeder because we had a feeder that we would hunt every once in a while. But if there was one thing that he was, is he never sat still. Do you like sit in blinds, Caleb, when you go? Do you just sit in blinds and wait and see if they come?
Yeah, I've got like one place I've got. I sit in a tripod and hunt, and I've done really good out of that. Another place there is a box blind there, but so sometimes I sit in that. But depending on which way the wind's blowing, it's not in an extremely great location. So I'll sit like there's like a lot of tall grass. I'll kind of sit down in some tall grass,
Sit
kind
down
of a
some
little
tall
ways
grass.
back. Yeah, I kind of wing it basically, depending on which way the wind's blowing.
Well, and that's I we never really had blinds growing up. And my paw, he was like, you walk the creek bed. Like you just find a nice creek bed and you slowly walk the creek bed. And then you come up on either side of the creek bed to take a look at either like the field over to the side over here or kind of like the clearing over here and you just kind of watch. And his whole thought process is that when you're walking the creek bed, you're pushing them up out of the creek bed onto the fields. And so then when you kind of come up out of the creek bed, you can take a good shot. But then what was really interesting is I am not a creeper. You would think that like I'm not a creeper either. I probably
Yeah,
shouldn't say
that's a
that.
good.
I'm
Yeah.
not a creeper. I don't
Well, that's
creep
a
on
that's a good
people.
thing. Yeah.
I'm not a sneaker.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what that is. That's called still hunting, and you got to have
Yeah.
quite a bit of land. You got to have quite a bit of land to do that.
And I mean, we didn't have a ton growing up. The place we hunted on was 400 and something acres.
Oh,
I mean, I
that's not
guess
bad. Yeah, you can.
that's not
Yeah, you
bad.
can do it. Yeah.
But it was like I would sit there and you'd almost like hear the sadness in my paws when I'm like stepping on a twig and he just stops slowly and kind of looks at me and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. I'm doing my best. He totally didn't. The Native American didn't get passed down to me like that, like it did for him. Because I swear he could be 200 yards away from you and then you turn around and then in 3 minutes he's right behind you and you had no idea he was coming. That guy was so quiet. So quiet. So I guess it's just different styles of hunting because I've totally hunted in blinds before, and I like sitting under trees and climbing into trees and finding some good stuff, you know.
Yeah, we always called that the Mohican sneak. You got to put the Mohican
Oh,
sneak on them. Yeah,
okay. So
and
I
you got
heard
to be
that tone
super quiet, super. Yeah,
super still and then
yeah,
coming up and taking your shots and stuff like that. And hopefully
yeah.
they don't see you when you're coming up out of the creek bed.
Yes, yeah.
So, but yeah, it's deer season, right? And that means it's going to be deer season through January 10th ish, right? It's like that second week is doe season in January. You shoot bucks here in Texas all the way through the end of December, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
I think like right at the end of December. Yeah. So, yeah. So that kind of reminds me of a story when I was a kid, probably high school, me and a buddy. There was a creek bed that ran through this place. And on one side of the creek was a big oat field, and the other side was kind of like a mesquite flat. So it was a good bedding area. And we had put a little bit of corn, a feeder in the bedding, well, kind of in the mesquite flat. And then so one side of us was an oat field, the other side was a mesquite flat with a corn feeder. And what we did, we snuck down. We had a plan. We were gonna, if when the wind was right, we were gonna sneak down the creek bed real quietly because it was a pretty long creek bed to get down in there, and it was really the only way to do it without. And there was some water running in it without spooking deer if there were any deer in there. And we creeped down there one day. We snuck down this wheat field or down this creek, and we popped right up on the edge in this little makeshift ground blind we made, and
Yeah.
a deer came within 10 minutes. There was a really pretty big buck jump up out of the creek bed right in front of us, and my buddy shot it. But I think if I remember, that was a long time ago. We never found the deer. I think he shot it
Oh,
far back, and yeah, but it was a good deer.
that's a good deer.
Never found it. Yeah.
Ooh, so that's a good question for you. So but biblical hunting, like we're gonna kind of that's our topic really today is talking about like hunting biblically and like right, we're supposed to let Christ overflow into every aspect of our life, right, as Christians, and so that even includes hunting. So is trophy hunt, this is a good one. I just thought of this on the cuff right here. Is trophy hunting, does that kind of like fall into it?
Ooh,
can you hunt the big deer and still
I
be all right?
think, oh yeah, for sure. But I think there's a certain way you need to go about it biblically because, and my kids are kind of going through this thing where I'm like, they're still young, but I'm kind of trying to nudge them into getting into hunting, going with me a little bit.
Yeah.
And they've kind of got this, well, that's God's creation. Why do we want to go harm God's creation? And I'm like, if you do it right, God has given us, God has allowed us to use his creation. He's given us dominion over the animals and things like that. So I've got little Luigi walking through here to use the restroom. He just left. So sorry. But
Little
I
Luigi.
think God, yeah, little Luigi. I think God gave us dominion over the animals. And I think when it's done right, I think it is biblical and it is a perfectly good thing to do, even if you're trophy hunting. So what I tell my kids is that, God's given us dominion over the animals. And as if you're using that meat, if you're harvesting that animal and using that meat to either eat it yourself or to help feed other people, I think that's when it's a good thing. There's a verse in Proverbs that I like. It's Proverbs 12:27, and it says, "The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt." So that's
Yeah.
a pretty cool one. So, to me, if you're going out there and shooting an animal and then leaving it, like let's say you go shoot a deer, you cut off the horns and leave the body. That's not good. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a biblically sound way of doing it. But if you go out there and let's say you shoot that animal and then maybe you do eat the meat or you take it to the processor. And what's cool, at least around here, and I think they do it in a large part of the country, like they do it in a lot of different places. But around here, what they do, I can't remember. I should have looked up what it's called.
It's the Deer Project. It's Good Samaritan does
There
it.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. The Good Samaritan, the Deer Project, and you can take it to almost any processor or in the county, I think, just about anyone, and tell them I want to donate it to the Deer Project, and that's it. They'll say, "All right, thank you very much," and they'll take it, and then they'll use that meat to help feed people that are in need and hungry.
Help
And I
feed
think
less fortunate.
something
Yeah.
like less fortunate people, and I try to at least once a year get a deer and donate to that. So
Yeah.
I think things like that are really good. And I'm going to skip over to there's a story in Acts. Now, you may, well,
Oh, oh, this is a good one. We could talk about
yeah,
this story for quite some
yeah.
time.
And so basically, I'll kind of give my version of a very brief history of several of the covenants made. Like in Genesis at the beginning, I think in the garden, basically, which it was Adam and Eve at this point, didn't eat meat. They ate, what did it say? Something like leaves or the green,
Yeah.
the grasses, the plants,
Yeah.
something like that. And then after the
After the
fall, they God gave them dominion over the animals to eat, to eat animals. And then over time, certain animals became when the law of Moses came, certain animals were unclean, certain things they couldn't eat. And
Which there's
then
some really interesting stuff kind of talk about the certain animals being unclean. When you look at that like through the laws of Leviticus and stuff like that, especially like pork was one of them. If you undercook pork and you don't cook it enough, pork can make you like super sick. You know what
it's
I mean?
trichomoniasis or
I
trichomoniasis, something like that.
I think it's something like that, but it's like it's one of those ones where you get to like the laws of like Moses and stuff like that through Leviticus, and you think these are some really strange rules. Like, why are we doing this? And it's like because in essence, God wanted to keep you set apart, and God wanted to keep the Israelites safe. And so it's like that's why they didn't want you to eat all this food and all this weird stuff because if not cooked right, they make you sick. I mean, I don't know about you, but you ever eat undercooked bacon, you just feel terrible. You're like, man, I didn't cook that bacon enough. And bacon's like one of my favorite things.
Oh yeah, for sure. And if you get that, it makes you really sick. So
Yeah, it does.
yeah, there's a reason. There was a good reason for those laws.
So back to Acts 10, right? When they were talking about 10?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, there was these laws where they didn't need a lot of different things, and we may get into a few of the hunting stories, but there are a lot of times throughout, say, the Old Testament where they different people in the Bible were hunters, and and hunting was included in a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
But so in Acts chapter 10, Cornelius is a soldier, and he calls for Peter, and basically Peter's headed to Cornelius's house because he wants to hear Peter preach. And Peter has a vision. He goes up on this roof, kind of falls into a trance, has this vision, and it's I'll just read it. Acts chapter 10, starting in partway through verse 9. Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. And while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven opened and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles and birds. Then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." So basically, that was God telling Peter, "Get up and, you can kill these animals, you can eat them."
I well, total really funny side story that may not be very beneficial at all. But I took a class, and one of the classes I took was Christian ethics, and what we were talking about was the ethical. It was the theory of Christian veganism, and it was weird. We could get into that at some point in time. I'd have to dig out the book, but it was the theory of the idea of like Christian veganism and how Christians in essence should go back to the idea of being vegans and not eating meat and stuff like that. And I kind of countered that point with this same passage. And at the end of my like sermon, or actually it was I was kind of teaching. I had to do a presentation towards the class, and at the end of the presentation towards the class, I said that part right there, and I said, "Now, just letting everybody know that we've discussed this idea of Christian veganism tonight. I will be going hog hunting, and I will probably kill a hog. And if I kill a small one, guess what I'm going to do? Probably going to eat it.
Yeah.
You know." And it's just, I mean, it's interesting things kind of like to talk about because you talked about the idea of the garden, and in the garden, before sin there was no death, but then after sin we've been kind of given this dominion of these things that we can't eat. And the fact of the matter is our bodies need protein. I mean, our bodies need meat. And I mean, so it kind of comes down to the idea of you could try not to eat meat all you want, but at some point in time, after years and years and years, your body will start to show the fact that you did not eat meat. So it comes back to this point here of where we are of hunting as Christians. Like how does that look? What does that mean? It's really interesting kind of thing to think about. And so at least for us and our family, we try to get at least 4 deer a year. But then that also means I don't buy red meat throughout the most of the year. We process it, we put it in the freezer. I mean, for lunch today, Caleb, I had some like just deer. I just fried up some deer in a skillet and then I just ate it because it's what I had, you know?
And which I've never done this, and I've always kind of wanted to, and you do this, which is cool. You process your own
Yep.
meat. So you kill a deer, you process it, and you pretty much at that point don't have any money in in that animal. So it's, you spend a little money up front, you're pulling something down there.
Okay, nobody else can see that. I was like, this is
Yeah.
actually, I mean, a deer. I shot this deer. And so I tanned its hide because I tanned its hide, right? You
Oh,
tanned
there
its
you
hide.
go.
But it's kind of the idea of that's kind of my pause thing, but you use it. Like you use the animal, you use every part that you can. And I mean, you're right. I mean, but even if you send it to the processor, they're still using that meat and you're still eating that meat, you know?
Oh yeah. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. We do that a bunch, but I,
I
to
won't,
me,
I
if,
won't.
or go ahead.
And all I was gonna say is I won't lie. I mean, I don't really have $100 to throw at the processor all the time, so that's why I process
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And we've been talking about this a lot. The way the prices of things are nowadays, you 2 years ago, or say 5, 6 years ago, you'd go to the grocery store and spend maybe say $50. Now that same $50 is going to cost you $100,
Oh yeah.
just by, buying ground meat, um, 6, 7, $8 a
Well,
pound.
and it's like, and I mean, you don't even have to do it like this, but how much here in Texas, what a super combo is $72? Isn't that what it is? I think it's like
68. It's somewhere around
68.
there.
And so it's like you could pay that and in essence get your red meat for the year. I mean, me and Lynn's buy red meat from time to time, but for the most part, we pay that once a year and we get our red meat. But it kind of brings me up to another thought of what when I say uh that because like we're supposed to be the heads of the household and the providers, right? We're supposed to provide for our families as head of the household. What does that really mean? Because like there's a ton of different things that could mean to provide for your family other than just going to work every day. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and like you said, so some people would, yeah, just go to work and say that's providing, but also, I think it's good to kind of get back to go just taking your kids and getting out in God's creation. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times we spend so much time, say, sitting in front of a computer screen or a TV screen, or like kids, especially playing video games all the time. Get them out. And that's part of providing your kids with a good, basically providing your kids with a way to get out and out of that screen. And that's doing something you need to be doing as a parent to kind of help your kids get outdoors and enjoy God's creation. Here's Luigi again. He's
He's coming
Hello.
back in.
Yeah, he's coming back. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting kind of talking about, I mean, you could throw the whole parenthood into that and like teaching your kids about God's creation. And I mean, to me, it's just really neat to kind of sit outside and for the most part, some of the most like hardcore prayers or hardcore time that I've ever spent with God has been a time where maybe I never saw a single deer while I was out there hunting. And I was just sitting there talking to God, or maybe something was going on and I was arguing with God, right? Or I was like having just this discussion of like, what's going on and why is this happening? And it's all in the context, at least for me, of deer hunting. And so it's like, it's interesting kind of like to think of this idea of hunting, but like tying your prayer life into that as well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And we've talked a lot about basically, you know, you need to do your best to live a godly life every day of the week, not just when you go to church on Sunday morning. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna try to do that, and you spend some time hunting, it's quiet. You sit out there, it's quiet. You're watching nature. Maybe you see deer, maybe you don't, but that's a perfect time to just talk to God and
And just talk to
enjoy
God and go to it.
enjoy God's creation.
Enjoy his correction. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
exactly.
And when I
I'm
take my
totally
kids hunting, I'm like, and at this point, I've taken all of them, I guess, at least once. But I'm like, we're walking back to the truck. I'm like, look at that sunset. Like that is, that's awesome. And you try
Oh
to
yeah.
point those things out to get them thinking that way, and I think it'll be good for them.
To get them thinking kind of like a little bigger of this is what God created. I mean, God created all of this, not just part of it or some of it. And it's just really neat, especially when you throw the kid aspect into that and trying to like train your kids up to be, respectful and to be mindful of what God is all around them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So kind of going back to your question, is trophy hunting? I think it's
Ooh,
it's perfectly fine. I think it's fun. It's enjoyable. You're learning about it takes a little bit of luck, but also you got to learn, you got to do a bunch of different things to get that deer in front of you. But I think, like I said, as long as you're using what you kill to benefit you or benefit others, I think you're good. I think you can, get after it.
So you're totally telling me that I can go and I can shoot that 12 point, right?
Yes, for sure.
So it's totally
Yeah.
fine. One of the places that I tend to hunt on a lot is actually a high fenced ranch, and um, I can't shoot any of the bucks. And I said this in another episode, Mickey, if you're listening, I'm going to talk about you again. And I'm pretty sure that sometimes like Mickey will tell me like where to go, and he'll be like, "Hey Dustin, I want you to go sit here." And I'm pretty sure he tells me to go sit here just so I can see the big bucks, and then he can laugh at me as I can just see the big bucks. And he goes, "No, you didn't get to shoot any of those, Dustin." I'm like,
That's how it
"Thank you,
works though.
Mickey."
The deer know, like if you're say you shoot a deer and then the next day the deer knows you're tagged out, you're not going to shoot them. So then the next day, an even bigger buck normally comes in and then he's there like most days in daylight. So that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah,
They know.
they do know. They do know.
Yeah, they do know.
Well, cool. Well, let's see. We talked about a couple different stuff. We've got a little bit of time left here. I gotta laugh though. I was looking at all these like passages you put like Jacob and Esau. You talked about different hunters. You also talked about Nimrod, which Nimrod's a
That's a
fun one to
funny one. We'll
talk
talk
about.
about that one. Yeah, real quick, because, Nimrod's like a derogatory term nowadays. I'm not sure why or where that came from. Probably be pretty easy to figure that one out. But,
Well, Nimrod
you
was the
call,
Tower of Babel guy, right?
well, you call somebody Nimrod and they're like, what? And pretty much he's only mentioned just a couple times. And I've got it right here. He's only mentioned in 2 verses. Cush was and this is Genesis 10, verse 8. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. You know, well, I guess then it talks a little bit about, it kind of goes into um, the first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk. So he was like a big guy. And there's probably, you can get into it a little bit more, but yeah, then
Was
basically it goes into some other stuff. And then the Tower of Babel is pretty quick after that.
I was about to say, was Nimrod the one that was over the Tower of Babel?
I don't
That's what
know.
I was thinking.
It doesn't mention his name in the Tower of Babel story. Now, I don't know if,
We're kind of getting off on a rabbit trail here.
yeah, we're getting on a rabbit trail. I don't know. I'd have to look into that one a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. But, it's funny. That's one of the first mentions of a hunter. And, pretty quickly after that, you've got Jacob and Esau, where Jacob steals Esau's birthright when, um, wait, yeah,
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
yeah. When his dad sends him out, Jacob or their dad sends Esau out to
Esau's out
hunt.
hunting. Yeah.
Esau's out hunting. And then Jacob's like, oh, I'll take that. I'll take this opportunity. And, so that's a cool story in Genesis chapter like 25, 26, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So that's a cool story. If you want to go read that one.
Let's see. You got Esau, you got Jacob. I mean, the Bible doesn't necessarily talk a ton about hunters, but what it does talk about and what we've kind of talked about some is like how to take care of God's creation. You know what I mean? And we talked a little bit earlier about what the beginning of Genesis that, humans were given dominion over creation. We were given dominion to continue to make sure it's healthy and continue to working. And whether people like to say it or not, because I know there are some out there that sometimes hunting's a touchy issue, is hunting is helping keep the world, keep the world healthy. You know what I mean? That's why there's
Oh
hunting
yeah.
limits. That's why there's tags. That's why you can't just go out and shoot as many deer as you please, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh yeah. And even Jesus, you go to Jesus. He, at one point, there's a story, the cool, there's a lot of stories with him and the disciples fishing, but I like the story after he's risen and the guys on the boat see him and they go to him, they see this guy, they don't realize it's him. And he's on the shore cooking fish that he's
He's cooking some fish that he's
supposedly,
caught.
yeah, he's cooking some
Yeah.
fish that he's caught. So at some point after Jesus had risen, he had went fishing, caught some fish, and the disciples came and they ate fish that he caught and cooked.
So
You
so
know,
basically what you're saying, Caleb, is be like Jesus and go fishing.
yes.
I won't lie, because if you'd have asked me how many times I've been fishing since the beginning of deer season, that's been like 9 or 10. So
Now, so then you get into catch and release. Jesus didn't release those fish.
Jesus did not catch and release those fish.
No, I'm just kidding. But
Jesus
yeah,
catching. Oh, but see, then the game and fish department's gonna get really mad at you, and then they're gonna come over and show, look at your cooler, and then like, why do you have this undersized crappie, Dustin? I'm like, Jesus said that's not gonna work, and that is the story of why Dustin would be in prison if he claims that, right?
there could be something give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So, oh well,
Render under
maybe
Caesar
that.
what is Caesar's.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with something good here. So yeah, you got to follow the laws. So there
Yeah,
you
we
go.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, hey, this is we're kind of reaching towards the end here, but do you want to like maybe pub a couple of our episodes we got coming up? Caleb, we've got some cool interviews actually lined up. Caleb's got one next week, maybe it'll drop,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
So today's this coming Saturday, so a week from now, we're going to interview one of my old college buddies. Now he is what's his name is Curtis, and what's cool, he has a podcast, the Equipped podcast. He's a preacher. He's going. I don't. He's in school for something, but he's a preacher. And he actually was the guy who married Jessica and I.
Ooh, I didn't
So
know that.
yeah, he was the preacher, and what was cool, he at the time he was not a preacher, of course, because he went to school, and I don't remember what his degree was. He was at Tarleton with us, and we were like, we really want you to marry us, and he at the time had never done anything like that before, so he went out and got his marriage license, so he could perform the ceremony.
Nice,
So that was,
nice.
yeah, that was really cool. So we've got him coming up, and he'll be really good. He's an awesome dude. He's got kids. He's got several kids. I'm not sure how many, but he's got kids. He's a good dad, and it'll be a cool conversation. So that's one.
Well, I'm
I've got
excited about
another
that one.
buddy. Yeah, I've got another buddy who I don't know exactly when we're going to be able to do this, but him and his brother went mule deer hunting in the mountains in
Oh, you're
Colorado.
right. Yeah.
So hopefully we can get him on pretty soon. It's a cool story. I talked to him on the phone the other day. So hopefully that would be a fun one to listen to a little bit about going. They went tent camping up in the mountains, and there was
Oh,
snow, and it was
that sounds so much
it was
fun.
like, yeah, it was like 18 degrees at night,
Yeah.
and I mean it was crazy. So that's a fun story. Hopefully we can get them on, and we've got a couple other guys.
We got
I
another
don't
one,
I don't want I don't
Doctor.
he
Should we
yeah
talk
let's
about him?
yeah, you
We
can
got
mention
we got
him
one
surely.
that's probably going to be in December at some point. Dr. Judd Burton. He's a biblical anthropologist. He's got a doctorate in biblical anthropology. We're going to talk to him about old Earth, young Earth stuff. So he's going to be really hardcore. I think that's going to be a fun one to listen to. I'm
Oh,
excited about that one.
that'll be cool. And that's one of those conversations that you have with your kids all the time, like,
Oh
how
yeah,
old the earth is, and dinosaurs, and where does everything fit in? Where are
exactly.
dinosaurs in the Bible and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be a really cool one. We're excited about that. And the other one, I don't we may wait on that one a little bit
We
just
can
to
wait
make
on that
sure.
one. That one will be
Yeah, we may
really
wait.
cool, but
Yeah. I'm
it's
super
it's
excited
neat.
about it, but hopefully it works out. So we'll
We're
kind of
super
wait on that one.
well, and we've got what I mean, we're just having so much fun here with the podcast, trying to line stuff up for you guys. I think we may do a giveaway at some point with something with common grounds. I don't know how that's going to work. Stay tuned for that.
Something on our
Yeah.
social media. So
Yeah,
go to
probably
our social media at some point to figure that one
social
out.
media stuff.
Yeah.
So sweet. Well, all right, Caleb, we've got like 1 minute left. You got any final remarks for us?
I've got a quick hunting tip. So if
Do
you're
it.
deer
Do it.
hunting and you see a buck, and he's a ways from you, and this has to be basically within the rut, around the time they're rutting, you have to give them a snort wheeze. And if let's say a deer is walking, a buck's looking for does by himself, but he's not in range for you to shoot him, and you give a snort wheeze, there's a good chance he is going to come running to you. Do you know what a snort wheeze is?
Can you give us an example of a snort wheeze, Caleb?
Oh, I sure can. Now, I was looking. I have like a grunt tube that I can do it in, but
Oh,
I'll do
yeah.
it. Like I've done this to deer just with what I'm about to do, just my mouth, and it has worked like really good. I've had deer come running from hundreds of yards, like running to me. But it
All
has to
right.
be at the right time of the year. Like, but oh, okay. So the snort wheeze is.
I hope that caught
I'm
up on
telling
the
you.
microphone.
I hope so.
That would be the best ever.
You just do that right there, and a lot of times it'll work. Somebody's
that
opening
is
the door there. So, yeah, snort wheeze.
That
That's
is
my
definitely
hot tip of the week.
hot tip of the week. Best way to end our podcast for today. Right now, thank you, Caleb, for that snort wheeze.
All right, I'll do it one more time, and we can end it on
Do
that.
it. I really hope it picked that up. Thank you guys for listening to Raising the Wild Ones podcast. I know me and Caleb sure had a ton of fun making this episode and just kind of going on our rants and stuff like that. And I just wanted to hop in real quick and be sure to remind you guys to like the podcast, share the podcast, tell your friends about the podcast, tell your cats, dogs, everybody. Tell your fishing and hunting buddies, right? I know it's hunting season, and during hunting season, you do a lot of just like sitting around and hanging out, and just tell them about this podcast and tell anybody you think would like to hear our podcast about us. And please also, if you'd like to, just drop us a line at raisingwildonespodcast@gmail.com. Tell us about future episodes you would want us to talk about, and also just let us know what you think in general about our podcast. We would love to hear from you guys, and we just thank you so much for listening to our podcast.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to reach out and bring you some exciting news. Our Patreon is now live. Patreon is a way to support this podcast so we can keep it going. For $6 a month, which is the cost of a cup of coffee, you get exclusive content that is for members only. This includes special episodes, show notes, and early release of our upcoming episodes. As we grow, more will become available through our membership. Another exciting thing is that we will donate $1 out of the $6 membership fee to missions. This money will go into the hands of missionaries on the ground doing the Lord's work. We are working on this and will hopefully have a podcast episode where we interview the missionary soon. So stay tuned for this. So go to patreon.com/Raising the Wild Ones podcast, or click on the link to our Patreon site in the show notes below. Thank you for supporting this podcast, and God bless.